All right. Hey guys, looks like we're gonna have some limited seating. So if there's like some middle row seats, if you wouldn't mind like scooching in, so like maybe people can come on in the corners, that'd be really helpful. But yeah, I'm actually gonna probably get started maybe a minute or two early because we've got 46 slides in 30 minutes. That's not a good ratio. And plus, the first like 3 minutes of the presentation are really boring, so I'm going to get through those. So my name is Ryan. This is Simon.
Hello.
Simon's been manning the booth downstairs, so he's been doing a great job. And if you're in the marketplace for a double X size T-shirt, double XL Republique VR T-shirt, we have one left downstairs, and that's all we've got. So please come by and see Simon. But we really appreciate you guys coming out. Today we're going to be talking about our game Republique VR, just released on May 1st for Oculus GO and Gear VR. We're going to be talking about how we've got this game to run on a 3-year-old cell phone running VR. Not an easy task, but thankfully the team was up for the task. But we're going to just kind of share all of our learnings about that. But real quick, again, through the boring stuff, this is our company, Camouflaj. We were founded in 2011, so we've been around for a decent amount of time now. And we're all about making meaningful games. Republique, as you probably know, is our first title. It's a game about a woman named Hope who's trying to escape from an Orwellian nation, and it's about players getting a sense for what it's like to be Big Brother in the kind of figurative sense, but also in terms of kind of looking out for her as well. And through our game, we want players to really understand what the good and bad of like a surveillance state can offer. And so we're really proud of our first game. We're based in Seattle, Washington, or Bellevue, Washington to be exact. We've got about 35 people, and then we have other folks that are kind of scattered throughout the world that have been helping us out. We've been a fully dedicated Unity shop since we first started, so back in Unity 3. We've been big believers in the technology. We love pushing the envelope. We love pushing our game to as many platforms as possible. And we're actually in the midst of a new VR title that we're working on, which maybe I'll offer a hint or two at the end of our presentation about. We also developed Republique and our new title in partnership with a developer in upstate New York called Darkwind. They're primarily engineers, great team, and they support lots of different projects that are Unity-based. Their most recent title is Wolverblade that was just released on Switch, PS4, Xbox, Steam, so definitely check it out if you haven't. So a really brief history lesson on Republique. It started off as a Kickstarter in 2012. And then it went to iOS in 2013. We had 5 episodes, and we kind of released the game on more platforms as we were releasing new episodes of the game. So we went to Android, and then we went to PC and Mac. We went to PlayStation 4, and now the next step for the franchise is VR. And we love working with Unity. We love talking at Unite. I don't know how many Republique-themed talks we've given at Unites over the years. We really love to do it, and we really love to share our learnings. So if you're interested, it's a little bit outdated, but still some interesting information. We did a really fun partnership about Unity 5 back in the day with Unity, and we did a bunch of videos and blogs and podcasts just about how we were able to adopt the game for the physically based pipeline. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about Republique VR. And before we get into the meat of the presentation, I've just got a very short trailer to present to you. Republique VR is the culmination of this game we've been working on for many years. All 5 episodes, every feature, and all of the DLC content is present here in one package that's been completely reimagined for virtual reality. From the project's inception, the development teams at Camouflaj and Darkwind have set out to make the best possible mobile VR game we could. And we've invested an incredible amount of time delivering on cutting-edge visuals on these devices. I think the team should be really proud of the fidelity that they're hitting, especially on mobile VR. In addition to the game's visuals, we have spent an absurd amount of time redesigning every aspect of the game's UI and supporting every single control method available. For players that connect the motion controller, all you have to do is point, click, and direct Hope. And for those that connect a Bluetooth controller, the game functions exactly the same way as the PlayStation 4 version does, giving you direct control over Hope. And thanks to popular demand, Republic VR includes all the DLC content previously only available on PlayStation 4. This means players can unlock new campaign modes when changing Hope's costume. And for fans of survival horror, I highly recommend the student costume. It's a personal favorite of mine that makes the game a bit difficult, but it's the perfect representation of the game's true vision. Speaking for our team here at Camouflaj and for our development partners at Darkwind, it is our hope that both fans of the original and VR enthusiasts absolutely love Republic VR. A great looking, fully featured, long-form campaign that we put our hearts and souls into. All right, so this is what we're going to be covering today. We're going to talk a little bit about this rough prototype that we built. We're going to talk about how we clearly underestimated the amount of work required to build this game. We're going to go over some of those technical challenges, some of the design challenges, and then talk about release. So we first started this project doing a very, very rough prototype. I tried to dig up footage of it. I couldn't find it. But it was actually a very successful prototype. It took us about a week to basically just enable the VR camera within Unity and set that to our surveillance cameras. So again, players view the world in VR through the surveillance cameras in the game. So through our prototype, we basically just took the main VR camera, we put it in the right spot, we disabled the ability to move the camera based on input, and so the player was just be able to look around in 360 degrees from a fixed position. And then we just use our normal control scheme to move around Hope. We've got a really great third-person VR experience that we're really excited about. And I felt really emboldened by this. I thought, you know what, this is going so smoothly, we'll probably be done in about 6 months, right?
Wrong.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it took about 18 months to finish the game. But what we did, though, was we sat down with our development partners at Darkwind, and we identified all the different things we're going to have to do in order to overcome these challenges of bringing the game to VR. Obviously, the biggest one is going to be performance. We're talking about bringing the game to about 3 times the amount of fidelity or performance that we were originally intending. So, for example, the art reprocessing was another big challenge for us. Simon's going to talk a little bit about the UI and the UX challenges that we encountered, and then also the challenges that we encountered on the gameplay side of things. So for us to prepare Republic for VR, our teams really needed to revisit how they culled and how they batched assets, and how we manage our game scenes, and how we manage when they're loaded and unloaded. So the biggest issue for us really was that there was just too many triangles, too many draw calls. And we had to quadruple our performance budget, our performance goals for mobile VR. In other words, we needed to get our game to run twice as fast as possible. So for reference, for example, Republic VR is running on a Galaxy S7. Again, a phone that was released about 3 years ago. And that was and that's all with this caveat that we are known as a studio that does really well with performance. We've done a pretty good-looking game on mobile before, so we thought it was going to be really easy to bring our game to mobile VR. But we realized that our game is not even close to as optimized as it really should have been. So one of the things we did was we rethought how we were taking on scene loading. So in Republic, at least up until now, our major art scenes were comprised of a single master scene with several smaller art sub-scenes underneath. So since all of these cameras in our game are surveillance cameras in the world, they're all in a fixed position, which means that we can predict exactly where to turn on and to turn off certain assets. So we use the player's camera switches to dictate when an art scene will be loaded and unloaded. That's one of our tricks that we have in the game. In other words, we're really lucky that we have fixed positions, right? So we know exactly where the player is going to be. So in the past, though, we really... Hold on, sorry. I'm trying to move. I want to scroll down my notes. I don't know how. How does technology work?
Let's see.
Here we go.
There you go.
I'll just use
Got
this.
it.
Okay, cool. So this method of loading and unloading art scenes actually causes a really brief hitch in the game. And we launched this way with the original game on mobile, but we masked that with like this 2D glitch effect. And it looks really cool. It makes it feel like, oh, you're switching between TV cameras, but in VR that was extremely jarring. So we realized that, oh, wait a second, our big hack to be able to load and unload these scenes in between these camera switches is completely off the table. We have to have split-second transitions, or we're going to actually cause like motion sickness. So in order to do this, we had to really vastly increase our, how we're managing our memory. Crap. Now I got to figure out how I can get out of this. I don't have my.
Not yet.
All right, cool. Sorry, guys.
There you go.
All right, so in order to reduce our memory consumption, we tried a lot of the really obvious things. You know, we reduced the texture sizes, we reduced our light map resolution, but we also had to change the way that we organize our material atlases. So for previous versions of Republique, each art scene had its own set of atlas material groups. So if we had like a master serial made up of 30 art scenes, for example, a wall texture could take up space in all 30 of those atlases, one for each scene. That was not going to work for Republique VR, so we changed that so each art scene master serial had to have only one set of atlas material groups. This basically allowed us to avoid having a lot of duplications. So back to my, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This is, I'm scrolling, you can see my mouse. There we go. There we go.
Got it.
So what we did, though, so with previous Republique releases, we took a lot of objects into a single scene and we combined them into a giant mesh in order to optimize on memory and memory consumption and memory usage. But we actually undid this work for Republique VR. We completely changed the way that we culled and we batched our assets. So Unity's occlusion culling system, which is powered by Umbra, as you probably know, is a very nice solution. However, the GPU performance that we gained from having Umbra enabled were canceled out by the runtime overhead that we were incurring. So based on Chris Pruitt from Oculus, his recommendation, we actually built our own new original culling system that takes advantages of our fixed camera positions in a very novel way. So for Umbra's occlusion system, what they do is they check everything at runtime, and it handles culling based on the camera position and rotation by checking some kind of like pre-baked data. For our VR version, however, we didn't need to check what's going on every single frame because we know where the cameras are, and we only care about when the player is jumping to the next camera. So we basically spent about 3 weeks developing our own custom culling system, which takes a static list of every object that is visible from every camera, and then when the player switches to that camera, we just enable and disable the renderers from a single time. I'll show you exactly what we mean. So here's a video of our occlusion culling tool being used. What's happening here is that it's taking a series of photographs from the position of every camera, from the left, from the right, above and below, and then it assigns colors to each mesh before it processes them. So when a player warps to a particular camera, that camera knows to only load meshes that have been assigned to those colors. So again, like I said, about 3 weeks of development, and then maybe another 1 or 2 weeks of just kind of random bug fixes that were occurring from this new system. Here's a photo of that was being taken by our occlusion system, all stitched together to illustrate how we took a single camera and we processed that particular area of the game. And then here's a short video of our loading system. On the left side of the video, you can see that the player is moving around from one camera to the next. And on the right side, you can see that the art scenes that are loaded and are unloading based on those camera switches. And you can see there's a lot of art content being loaded that the player can't see from their perspective. So again, like if I, actually I'll use the mouse cursor now that I know how to use it. I'm going to play this again. Yeah, so you can see that when the player is moving around, we're not being super economical when it comes to how we're loading. See this huge, that huge area, that's what we call Briggs. It's very early on in the game. We're loading that whole thing when the players move to a specific camera. It's extremely inefficient. So for our new culling system, what you see here is that with each camera switch, the art that's being loaded from camera to camera is a lot more deliberate and a lot more economical. We were able to reduce our try count by as much as 80% with this new system, which is obviously a huge, huge gain. Yeah, so you can see, like, as the player's moving around, we're only loading exactly what we need, not like the big Briggs area that we were loading with the previous system. And here's like another kind of side-by-side comparison. The old system, a total nightmare. New system, look, very nice and efficient. So we did everything we could do to improve performance without sacrificing quality. We simplified a lot of our shaders, like our water shader, and we eliminated a lot of costly like reflections basically going on in the game. We also utilized Unity's single pass render feature. I believe it was introduced in Unity 5.6. And we saw some significant gains in performance there. In some areas in particular, we're seeing as high as 30% increases in frame rate, which is a really great boost to us. So I'm going to take a quick break. Simon's going to jump in and talk a little bit on the design side and some of the challenges that we face and how we overcame those.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, guys. So I was a lead game designer on Republique VR, and early on, we were sort of hoping that we'd do a just quick port, as Ryan said, just switch over, hopefully everything works. Very quickly, we found that was not true. Republique was originally, back in about 2011, 2012, conceived as a game with almost no UI in it. We wanted players to feel like they were Big Brother, that they were actually in this world hacking into these security cameras. So we took a very stripped-down approach. Not really a video game, more like a movie. Over time, though, we did a lot of playtesting and found that players were really struggling with that lack of feedback. It's already a pretty unconventional game, and it can take a lot of time for players to wrap their heads around what's unfolding on screen. So even though we didn't really want it, we started realizing that maybe we had to consider putting some more UI into the game. Very late in the game's development, Ryan, who'd been fighting for very little UI, ended up compromising and allowing us to put in a lot of UI elements in service of a smoother experience. As you know, each platform has its own UI requirements, and as we put the game on iOS, Android, PC, PlayStation 4, each one of those had a bunch of extra work to rethink and redesign how the UI worked. Fortunately, though, when it came to revisit the UI for Republique VR, we had this lesson many, many times, and we knew that we were going to have to really look at the way we did our UI in VR. One of Republique's kind of core mechanics is this hacking mode, which we call OmniView, where you kind of pause the game and you're in this digital world where you can switch between cameras, explore various objects in the game, which help tell the story and give you currency and stuff. And you'll see a lot of icons that you can click on to explore things. We needed to move these into the game world and feel like you were really present in there. So you can see in these screenshots like how it was in the old system and just kind of the new clean one.
Yeah, exactly.
Kinda.
Oh, actually, no, it was just playing.
Okay, here we go. Wait, how do I get back? Sorry, guys.
How does the computer work?
There we go. So this is our new system, and you'll see they're actually 3D objects that are kind of have real presence in the world. All right. Also, Republique's inventory, which originally was a pretty spare and utilitarian sort of thing, we ended up deciding that we would place all of this as in-world assets to give a real presence to it. That was kind of an early rule. It's no 2D cards, no very abstract UI. We want a lot of diegetic things. So we placed a physical phone in the world because in the game you have a physical phone. In this phone, you have all of the game's collectibles, audio logs, access to the map, and various things. As I mentioned before, we also knew that the 2D sprites that we used for all our point of interest items and images were not really going to read or look good in VR, so we had artists go back and go through the hundreds and hundreds of images we had for that and create full 3D models that you could rotate and view. I think that really helped with immersion in VR for players. But at the same time, you can see why a 6-month schedule was a bit optimistic for this game.
Yeah, we're really not showing the depth of this cell phone UI system that we built that was designed by our friends at Darkwind, but yeah, it's just unbelievable the amount of work that went into it to make it feel more diegetic.
Yeah. Let's see, here we go. You can see how you interact with this. 3D objects, you can rotate, check out. It makes you really feel like you're in the world and it's a real world, not just a 2D screen that you're seeing in VR. All right, and that brings us to our next design problem, cinematics and puzzles. Republique has a lot of narrative in it and a lot of cinematics. There's 2 types of cinematics. There's in-game vignettes, which you would view through various cameras in-game, and also video calls we called FaceTime that were never intended to be actually viewed in the world. They were 2D pre-rendered cinematics. With the video calls, we had a host of issues with VR. Forced camera movement that can make players sick, cinematics that if you looked away from the perspective we intended, you'll see bad animations, missing art, all those things you would expect from a pre-rendered cinematic. But on the plus side, considering kind of the context of how these were phone calls, video calls from the player, from Hope to the player. And so immediately we realized that our system for UI and menus, the phone in-game, would be a natural fit to actually have these video calls play on the phone. Allowed us to do 2D images that didn't really feel off because you were getting a phone call on your phone. A much more complex issue was we have a lot of one-off puzzles throughout the game, and they can be all sorts of things, just UI interactions, actually physical game stuff. Each one we had to come up with our own unique solution for. Most of these were screen space 2D ones. In some instances, again, we managed to leverage this phone. We can just display it on the screen. You're hacking into a program through your phone, which makes it really easy and works sense. But other ones, we have a lot more challenges. This blueprint puzzle, which was based on the game Blueprint 3D, which the developer helped us develop for Republic, required a fixed perspective. You were lining up objects so that they would match and create a larger shape. And of course, in VR, you can't ever rely on the player having one unique singular perspective. So it fell apart right away. And this was a case where we realized we just have to create a whole new puzzle. This is never going to work in VR. Each of these puzzles we have probably 10 of them throughout the game, had its own solution. And so they were individually worked on with the best answer we had. Next up, controls. In original game, Hope was an AI-controlled character who responds to touch inputs. Kind of worked like a real-time strategy sort of game. Had a waypoint system, you click, she passed there. She actually had her own AI, which allowed her to avoid guards, kind of defend herself and whatnot. We really wanted players to feel that Hope was her own character and had her own agency. With Republic VR, we kept that system, and we used Raycast Vision Check to display a dot that showed exactly where you were looking, and that's where your pointer would be. As you move around, the dot actually collides with the environment, so you find that on there. In the PlayStation 4 version, we decided to add an additional control scheme. Thank you, Ryan. Which was direct control. We had to support gamepads, so rather than let her path with her own AI and kind of do like a real-time strategy, it was one-to-one control. Every movement you did was a movement that Hope did. So when we came to Republic VR, we had to go, which control scheme do we use? In typical,
why not both?
Right? In typical Camouflaj fashion, why not both? Let's support all the control schemes and give players freedom to choose what they want. Fortunately, our AI kind of waypoint system allowed us to handle both standalone, just gear VR with gaze control. You can look and tap. Motion controller, point with the controller, my preferred one. And direct control, you can hook up a Bluetooth controller and use the direct control just like you do on PlayStation 4. With each of these, we wanted to make sure that the experience felt right and it wasn't like a half measure. I wanted to make it feel like it was naturally designed for that. So we spent a lot of time tuning all these systems so that they would work no matter what controls you used. An even larger part of the game is the camera system. In Republic, since you're viewing it through cameras, the camera is essentially your avatar. So we've always spent a ton of work making sure the cameras felt really good. In VR, one of our biggest concerns was neck strain. Do you have to look too far? Are you going to get tired as you're constantly looking around and switching between these?
Can I interject in there too?
Do.
I just had this rule with poor Simon, who, by the way, has been working on Republic for how many years?
5.
5 years. I don't even want to know how many times you've played the opening introduction area of the game.
I dream about it.
I believe you do. And he needs to do his own talk in terms of like how you stay sane working on the same game, and especially with the same introduction for 5 years in a row. It's unbelievable. And I have a deep amount of respect for Simon and his dedication to the project. But I threw that respect aside during the development of this game and said, Simon, I'm going to play this game on a couch, not on a swivel chair. And if I have to kind of crick my neck one way or the other too far and it gets uncomfortable, I'm going to bug that camera, right?
And he did.
And I did. And poor Simon had to go through, I don't know how many cameras we have in the game.
With thousands.
Thousands of cameras. And so,
honestly.
but Simon did an awesome job just making sure that every single camera didn't really force the player to strain their neck too far to be able to see the next camera to warp to.
Mm-hmm. And into deep dive a little bit, not only did Ryan do that, but he slouched on the couch. It was like literally the worst use case for VR, where you see a lot of people using swivel chairs and whatnot. And you know what? I was like, what have you done? And then realized, you know what? This is the bar. If we can get the game to run good with that, with about what we found was about a 90-degree field of view, you're never going to hit too far where you're having to really twist or turn around. So that was a really important design goal for us to make sure it played smoothly. Our camera system is pretty complex and convoluted. It's kind of homebrew system. Each camera has a ton of different variables, rotations, where they're pointing, what objects they can see, et cetera, et cetera. We have an automatic switch system where you hit various volume triggers and will automatically switch as the character moves through it, or you can manually move through. So with each of these cameras, I would have to go through and basically say, where is the player going to go? Where are they going to come from? What are all the possibilities here? What are things to interact with? And try to kind of optimize for each camera those things. Originally, we talked about literally burning down the whole camera system and starting over. And fortunately, we're able to just do a lot of iteration and use our existing system and just be very careful to make it go smoothly. But interestingly, in our first demo, our idea was our field of view would be 90 degrees, and when the player went past that with their head, the screen would fill with static. But that was one that everyone hated. It really got rid of the freedom of VR, right? So to make sure that we did this, we did all these things that we said. And one thing that was a really big focus is the amount of auto switch triggers. We probably doubled or tripled to make it much more discrete in all these changes, so that players just didn't even have to think about it. We wanted them to have flow and not realize that they had to wrestle with this camera system. Took a ton of trial and error, months of playing through and getting feedback from players and whatnot. I think we did a pretty good job when it came down to it.
Yeah, it did a pretty good job, I would say.
But you let me know if you see me at the booth. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So basically, to kind of wrap it up, we face a lot of very difficult technical and design channels, and just straight up production challenges as well. As Simon alluded to, we have so many different unique aspects of the game. Just getting the core moment-to-moment working in VR, really easy. But doing all the work to get to ship quality on every single one of the different unique aspects of the game it was just stupid. And the problem with the team, though, is that nobody wanted to sacrifice or cut one puzzle or cut this puzzle to make like a kind of a compromised VR experience. Every time as a team we got together and we talked about what needs to be done next, it was somebody was going to be an evangelist for one of the parts of the game. So we ended up just basically bringing every single part of the game and rebuilding it properly for VR, but again, really push out our timeline. My original budget of the game was probably about $500,000, but I'll just share with you guys, with you friends, we're not live streaming this thing, right? We spent about $1 million working on this game. If you just look at all the different people that worked on it over the course of about 20 different months, so it was definitely a labor of love, but we're really proud of the end results. Like I said, we came out on May 1st, and poor Simon had to deal with me texting him throughout all May 1st because it was so exciting to see us start at rank number 30 on the sales charts in Oculus, and then go up to 10, and then to 9, and then to 3, and then we hit number 1, I think right before I went to bed. And it was nice to see that number. I didn't screen cap that, but also number 1 at the time though was the bundle that also included Republique VR, so we were getting sales on both. So really, really excited about that. Really excited about how the press is responding to it, and also players. But the work is not over. We faced a couple of different bugs that we've thankfully fixed since release, and one of them actually has to do with how file sizes are being handled on the Oculus GO. And our game being, I think, one of the most, if not the biggest file size
I'm pretty sure it's the biggest.
It's the biggest. I think we're at 4 gigs. Mm-hmm. It actually created a lot of different issues that nobody could anticipate. So we're still waiting for some help on that one as well. But overall, we're feeling pretty good about it. So to kind of wrap it up, I know that was really fast, but we only had 30 minutes. But if you would like to have more information about the game, there's a lot of different areas or different places you can go. One, you can buy the game, because guess what? In the game, there's 100 actually recorded conversations between myself and the rest of the team as we're developing the game over the course of 5 years. They all knew I was doing it, by the way. I wasn't violating any kind of laws, I don't think. But those are scattered throughout the game, and we're just straight up talking about how we're going to design the space, arguing about what we're going to cut, arguing about what we're not going to cut. So that's available in the game right now. It's a really fun feature. We also just did a blog on Oculus Development Blog. There's a link there. These slides will obviously be shared out. We have a podcast where we talk every month about our development, and we just talk about like all the ugly truth about game development. It's not really a good PR vehicle. It's really all about us complaining about how hard it is to make video games. And then finally, you can also email us. Simon and I are not as technical as probably a lot of you folks are in the room, so you're more than welcome to come see us after the talk, and we'll try to walk you through some of the ways that we overcame a lot of the technical issues. But if you do have some questions on the technical side, I actually think there's a lot better people to talk to, and you can talk to them via the WhatsApp at camouflaj.com email, and I'll make sure that our dev team actually does respond with we love to overshare, so don't hesitate to ask big questions. This is my final slide. We're as a studio, like I said, we're fully dedicated to VR right now, and we're dedicated to navigating like the ups and downs of VR. I think it's been really fun watching all the crazy analyst expectations and then all the crazy pessimism that's kind of followed since then. We're just really big believers in the medium and about the immersion. We love problem solving. The team is just completely enamored by the technology, and with our next game, we're really going like all in. With an original title completely built for VR. I'm really excited to share that with you when the time comes. And we're also very committed to Unity as well. We love the technology. We're really excited about what's going on with SRP and graphics jobs and the C# job system. We're fully utilizing it as a team, and we'll be fully utilizing nested prefabs, I'm sure, which is like the big announcement. I won't believe it until it's in front of me, like I'm sure a lot of you guys believe it, but it's very, very exciting. Again, a special thanks to Simon for not only helping me prepare this deck and doing a great job with the presentation, but his dedication to the project. I don't know how many fans of Republic we have in this room, but if there are any fans, can you just join me in like thanking him for his dedication to the project? It takes a special kind of crazy to work on this game for as long as he did, so I appreciate that.
It's a pleasure, sir.
All right, well, we got a couple minutes for questions. You have to go quick, but thank you so much for joining, guys.
Any questions?
I don't know if that mic is ready to rock, but
I'll just try.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got two questions. One of them is, you said you built your own culling system. That means you were CPU bound, or was it also for the GPU side interesting thing, so that you also save draw calls?
Yes, yes.
You save draw calls with your new culling system?
With both the culling system and being more efficient with the way we batched and did Atlasine and everything. Draw calls were probably our biggest bottleneck to performance.
Okay. And you said your poly count was a problem. Was that because of dynamic batching or also otherwise?
Dynamic batching and unnecessary loading of assets. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, you
no
bet.
problem.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Here.
Hello.
Hey, you told us that the whole company is now fully focused on VR development.
Correct.
So how do you finance that?
We've got some really good friends. I'm definitely not financing based on sales of Republique, I'll tell you that. Yeah, we had a project that we were developing after Republique that was actually canceled, and that was a really tough time for the team. And that was at the time when VR was at its height in terms of excitement, especially in the kind of the business world, right? So I was able to secure funding for a pretty large VR title, which I'm really excited to share with. I wish I could tell you more, but yeah, I mean, I'll just use this as like my 30-second, maybe not even that, 20-second like soapbox on how I believe it's just really important that as an industry and also for hardware makers and platform holders to really stay committed to VR for through thick and thin, even when pessimism is starting to take over. Like for example, I love seeing all those titles that Oculus is announcing, and I love that they're like fully dedicated to it. Same with PlayStation and HTC, obviously.
I agree. And how do you convince them? What's your pitch?
Well, thankfully, I didn't have to just have a pitch. I had a playable prototype that was absolutely amazing. I didn't really get into this today, but I don't think there's any secret that Republique is not, whenever it wins awards, it doesn't win awards for gameplay, right? It's more story, visuals, and I'm really proud of what the team has done there, but we really didn't nail moment-to-moment gameplay with Republique, so we kind of flipped it on its head for this next project. We started with gameplay, fast iteration, and the next game that we're doing is strictly gameplay first. The story's going to be awesome as well, but we just basically just blew it out of the water with an incredible prototype that the team worked on.
All right. One more question, if I may. are you also looking at the LBE space, the location-based entertainment space?
It's without getting into yes, yes. We've looked at the LBE space. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for great questions, and thanks guys for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.